Welcome to Retirement Mentorship. My name is Freeman Lindy. I'm a certified financial planner and enrolled agent. That means a tax expert. And I help folks over 50 get ready for, merge into, retire, all those things. Do it with dozens of people. And I like building this content to help both my clients, to teach them things that I don't have time to teach them live, and to help other folks out there as well. So we are here live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Sometimes a little late like today because we actually run a real financial planning firm, and sometimes people walk in and it throws off your timing a little bit. I'm not a YouTuber. We're actually just real planners. So, but basically 4 o'clock every day, 4 p.m. Central. And so we will, and I'll post to YouTube afterwards and Spotify and Apple and stuff. So if you can't catch us live, for sure, just watch the replay. But we'll have a main topic each week that we'll talk about. Today, we're covering 3 terrible tax strategies. So we'll get to that in a second. We also have Q&A each day. So if you have questions, feel free to throw those in the chat on the YouTube channel, or you can email us at retirementorship or questions at retirementorship.com, and we'll just pull those together and we'll answer your questions live on the show. So yeah, come every Wednesday if you want to have your questions answered live. Otherwise, just email them, and then you can watch the replay. Okay, let's get right into it. So there are 3 terrible tax strategies that you should avoid in 2026, right? We're keeping with this theme for tax season of doing tax planning, right? Not just tax prep, looking at last year's returns, but tax planning. How do we pay the least amount over our lifetime? How do we have the most amount of money after paying taxes? All of that. And it's all leading up to the release of my new book, Tax Saving Strategies, which is coming out in about a month here or so. You can pre-order that in the link below. We'll cover a little bit of that in a bit. Inside the book, there's 5 terrible tax strategies that we cover. And so if you want to, you're going to have to get the book. You can get it for free if you pre-order it, but we're only going to cover 3 of them today. So you want to get that book because it has the last one that's only in the book is a doozy and something that's really, really popular right now and needs to be quashed. So we'll cover that there. But in the meantime, we'll cover 3 of them today. So the first one, the first terrible tax strategy that we want to avoid is tax deferral only. And this is something that many people get stuck into, where we always want to lower our taxes today so that we pay less. And we do that by deferring income out into the future, typically through 401k contributions, IRA contributions, etc. And so, right, usually what that means, right, if we look at a graph here, is if we've got, X amount of money that we can throw in there, our CPAs will often tell us, hey, go ahead and throw that in pre-tax, because if you throw it in pre-tax, you can have, a lot more money versus if you put it in after tax, you might have something like that. And hey, look, you'll have way more money in the end and you'll save taxes today, right? If you have, XX amount of income and we can defer it by, send, 10,000 of it out into the future, then you will pay, less in taxes and get a big refund and get a bunch of that back to you. And the problem can often be, right, that CPAs and other tax preparers, their job is to make sure that last year's taxes are done correctly and that you get the biggest refund. And oftentimes the bigger the refund they get you, the more happy you are, because we judge our results off the refunds we get, not off the actual taxes we pay. And if they get you a big refund, you're more likely to come back to them in the future. And so that's why they often push these kind of short-term tax deferral only things later. But here's the thing, right? If you do this and you're all tax deferred, and by the end at retirement, you've got $1 million, but it's all pre-tax and you haven't paid a dime of taxes at all. Do you really have $1 million? No, you don't. So it's a little bit of a phantom net worth there. And so that's kind of this illusion of both the refund side of it and the pre-tax side of it, is that we feel like we're winning because we get big refunds. We feel like we're winning because we have high net worth balances. But in the end, you haven't paid any taxes on it. And the taxes that you can pay in the end could eat into a big chunk. So I don't have any problem with deferring taxes. I don't have any problem with IRA contributions or 401k contributions, all those things. But it needs to be part of an overall strategy. Because here's the thing, if you're someone who actually wants to learn something from this, not just endlessly listen, but actually take some notes and do some things, right? Write this down.
Write this down.
The goal is not to minimize last year's taxes. The goal is to minimize lifetime and legacy taxes, right? And so far too often we are concerned with how do we defer some income and so we can lower today's taxes without caring at all about tomorrow's taxes. And the problem is that the farther you get out here and the more of this you get, that's all pre-tax, eventually you hit the age where you have, required minimum distributions, which we talked about some last week, which is, hey, you're going to have to take a certain amount out of this account every year based on the balance and your age. And when that happens, oftentimes it's pushing your income, right? If we look at various, the different tax brackets that are in there, you thought you were going to be here somewhere in this tax bracket, but then those RMD kicks in and now you're in a new tax bracket. And now you're paying extra taxes. We all pay taxes. We're trying to avoid paying extra taxes. And if you get to that point where that RMDs are pushing to that next bracket, you're there for life, maybe even in the next one. And so we don't want to cause this long-term problem just to solve a short-term solution. And so this is one of the really bad strategies out there. So many people that I work with are 100% or nearly 100% pre-tax 401k in their retirement. Maybe they have a little bit of Roth, but it's mostly pre-tax. And so they've been basically doing this tax strategy forever without even questioning it or really thinking about it. Maybe they've started thinking, oh, maybe I should have more Roth. You probably should, right? You probably should. And so there's this time bomb ticking of paying lots of extra taxes by the time we get out here. And we want to mitigate that by avoiding this strategy. Doesn't mean we avoid deferring any income at all, any taxes at all, but it needs to be part of a strategy that's balanced so that we pay the least over our entire lifetime, not just last year, but over the whole lifetime, right? We covered this a little bit more in depth with a different phase of retirement a few episodes ago. You can go back into the YouTube channel to do it. Maybe we'll have a link for it in the description, but you can check out more of that. But otherwise, that is one strategy certainly that we will want to avoid. Okay. So the next terrible tax strategy. So this one, tax deferral only. The next terrible one here, and let me get some new paper for us because we're going to run out of space here. Let me try this. Look at this. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Okay. So the next terrible strategy that we want to avoid is permanent life insurance. Okay. And this is really sold. I've done a lot of work on this. If you've been following me at all, I'm opposed to the good old permanent life insurance. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I've detailed a lot of the reasons why in other videos. But for now, I want to just kind of keep it somewhat related to the tax aspect of it. And so the way that these work, right, is they are often touted as these awesome tax mitigation strategies, right, where you can get tax. So I've even heard it called you get tax preferred income. And so they'll say things like, hey, you can access your money tax-free. You can get tax-free pension. You can get tax-free income. There's no age limit, right? Hey, yes, you can do a Roth IRA, but you can't touch it till 59 and a half. With this, you can take it right away. Within a few years, you can get money out of that. So there's no long-term limit on that. You can take as much as you want, all these things. And you get that through tax-free policy loans, tax-free partial surrenders. And it's a great tax mitigation strategy. And so they really tout these things as this awesome Swiss Army knife, and they often push the tax benefits of it more than anything else. The reason they do that is because the growth benefits of it are terrible. So we'll get into that. So how do these things actually work? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know. So if we have a timeline here, almost all my work is done on timelines, if you follow me for any amount of time. And so if we say, hey, the red here is going to be your premium. That's what you pay. And sometimes we'll say this is your contribution, as if it's like an account that you're contributing to, right? And so over time, you're going to pay X amount per year. And so that's just going to continue on a straight line. If it's a really bad policy, that will go on forever until you die. Some of the better ones will say, hey, at some point that will actually end, and then you'll no longer pay on it, but you'll still have the rest of the policy. In exchange for that, right, you might say, hey, the blue is going to represent your death benefit. That's the amount that's going to pay out to you when you pass away, because it is a life insurance policy, right? And so that's going to be here, and it might increase a little bit over time. So if you pass away, here, you're going to get that amount, right? A key factor in here is that you don't get this plus this. It's not like this stacks on top of it. You still only get that. But right, there's no amount of investing we could do to go from this amount of contribution to that amount of return in that short of time. So yeah, that would, if you passed away, that would technically be a great rate of return. It would be a better rate of return if you spent the same money on a term policy, which by comparison would be off the charts here. So that would be a better rate of return if you're just looking at the life insurance piece. And then the third piece would be what's called the cash value. It's cash that's available to you inside the policy that you can use. And there's going to be a delay on this up front. because some of your money goes to some fees and some part of the life insurance part of it, right? But that eventually will catch back up, pass it, and then even after you're no longer putting money into it, will continue to grow until you pass away, right? So let's say you eventually pass away somewhere out here. And let's say that, a lot of times these will be keyed to, if it does stop, it'll be keyed to 65. And so like, perfect. So we're gonna have this death benefit that pays out if you pass away early. We've got cash value that you can access anytime along the way. You can take out a chunk here to buy a car and then put it back in. You can take out a chunk to buy a cabin, put it back in, pay for kids' college, put it back in, whatever you want to do, right? It's very flexible. You're not stuck until, there's no 59 and a half here. No, sir, you can take that money anytime you want, and you can get that money tax-free. So where if you did it in a brokerage account, you pay capital gains, interest. If it's in a bank account, you'd be paying taxes on your interest every year. You don't pay any taxes. As long as that cash value is growing, zero taxes on that growth, no taxes on the distributions, on the income that we take off of it. You can just put that sucker right back in. You're not, you can take out 20 grand and put all 20 grand right back in the same year. You can't do that with the Roth IRA, right? You're limited to the limits per year. And so it's just a really good Swiss Army knife. It's awesome. So many tax benefits. Then out in retirement, you can either, right, just gradually pay that out to yourself as an income, or you can, supplement, hey, take some out when the markets are down, pay it back when the markets are good, take some out when the markets are down, pay it back when the markets are good, right? Different strategies we can do there. Lots of flexibility. Again, all tax free. And it seems so awesome, so good to be true. Okay. So this seems great. What's the problem here? And this is where they don't really cover a lot of these things. So problem number one is this chunk here, where you have terrible short and long-term growth on it. Right? Think about this. If you've been contributing on this red line and it takes you until here to break even, to literally have as much money in it as you have put into it, that's a really bad rate of return, right? Even the bank, which pays nothing, still has a positive rate of return. And if you were, going into a bank and you put in, hey, here's this much money you've put into a bank, and even at 2% interest, you're going to have this much return, and it's going to be positive from day one and every other day. You're going to have a positive return. And here you have guaranteed negative returns, usually for 10 to 20 years before it catches up, right? And then long term, right, you've got maybe a 3 to 5% long term rate of return if you actually just back out the math on that, which is really bad long term returns, right? Long term returns, right, like with equities and whatnot, you want 8 to 12%. The difference between 8 to 12 and 3 to 5 is hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over a 30, 60-year stretch. It's wild. Like you do, like this is okay returns for short term, right? We want a short term money that we need in the next 2 to 3 years, making 3 to 5%. That's fine. We don't want 30 to 60-year money making 3 to 5%. That's horrific. Okay. And so that's problem number one is, really bad returns. So that's one, right? Second one are this whole like take money out and put it back in completely tax-free. That's not unique to this. You can do that with anything. You can take out a loan from on your house. It's called a home equity line of credit, right? And you can pay that back anytime you want. And the loan's not taxable income. And you can pay it back as much or as little as you want. I mean, there's usually some minimum you have to pay back, right? But you can put it all back in there the same year. And so they often talk about this like policy loan, like totally tax-free income, put it back as much as you want, no Roth IRA limits, all that stuff, as if it's like somehow unique to this policy. No, you can do that with a home equity line of credit, right? You can borrow against a car. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. Another actually popular one is you can borrow against your brokerage account, a securities-backed line of credit, right? And again, same thing or different thing. Let's now use red as my typical, equities that we usually do, right? You could invest in something that's going to go up and down. It's going to be all over the place, right? But your 8 to 12% returns are going to be way more. And then same thing. If you want money out of there, you can take a loan and pay it back, and take a loan and pay it back, and take a loan and pay it back. But you can take a much bigger one because you have way more money in there. Because again, bad returns. So if number two, right, number one, number two is your policy loans are not unique. Again, all you can do is loan out against the amount of cash value in the policy or against whatever the equity you're loaning out against is. And so I would rather have something that's bigger that you can then loan out bigger amounts. If you want to just be able to put it back and not actually touch the amounts, that's fine. So not actually a huge benefit, much better vehicles to do that with that are in your best interest. And then the last problem here, so we'll say number 3, is that they talk about all these tax-free benefits and whatnot, but you actually pay ordinary income on the surrender if you ever get rid of these things, right? So let's say this. Let's say that you're doing this, right? And you start taking money out and you take out more than you thought, and now you are out of cash value. Well, the thing is, like, the policy actually still needs payments, even if it says paid up, or a lot of times it still does, right? And so if you can't keep paying on that, you don't have the money to say, well, hey, I'm just going to surrender. I don't, you know what? We've got enough other stuff. I don't need this death benefit anymore. I just want to be done with it. Okay, perfect. Well, your basis, what you've paid into it, is here, right? And you've spent all this down. And so maybe you surrender and you have like that amount left, right? Well, you've already taken a lot more out. The amount you've actually taken is like, X amount or whatever. So when you surrender that, the amount you've actually taken over and above what it's grown to, if it even does that, right? It's supposed to grow to here if you just left it alone, right? So the difference between here and your basis, all of this, when you surrender it, is all taxed at ordinary income, at your highest tax rate, all at once. And you could have used all that already. You already borrowed it all out so that you don't actually get the money. It's not like you somehow get a bunch of money and now you can pay the tax on it. No, you just owe all the taxes even though you already spent the money, right? And so again, it's not necessarily this awesome tax-free benefit. You are just, again, deferring taxes that you might have to pay later and maybe all at once. And so that is something that I've never, ever heard anyone who sells life insurance mention when they're talking about the tax benefits. So not great, right? Again, the same thing, right? I could talk about how you have to pay interest on the money that you use. So, hey, you get to use your own money, but you have to pay interest on it. Like, there's a whole bunch of other problems I could talk about with these. I was trying to keep it mostly related to the tax aspects because we're talking about tax strategies. All that to say, the tax preferences of permanent life insurance are not nearly as good as they're made out to be. And you can get better strategies elsewhere when someone's not getting paid a hefty commission to sell it to you. So that wraps up that one. So yeah, again, if you want to write stuff down, write this down, right? The goal is not to minimize taxes. It's to have the most amount of money after tax, right? The goal is to maximize money after taxes. You can do this and you can pay less taxes, but you also just have way less money. So I would rather, even with paying capital gains on this, if this is a non-qualified brokerage account, a taxable brokerage account, I would rather be paying taxes all the way along to achieve this outcome instead of this outcome, where again, it's more money available to us now and even more money than if we died. And if we just left it alone, again, it would just be way more money than the death benefit. I would rather just have all that money while I'm alive versus only when I'm dead. And I would rather pay some tax along the way if it meant I had twice as much money. And honestly, the difference between 3 to 5% and 8 to 12 is not twice as much money. It's multiples of that. You can do the math over 30 years. So, right, the goal, not to minimize taxes, at least not solely. It's not solely to minimize taxes. The goal is to maximize money after taxes, and permanent life insurance is a terrible way to do that. Cool? Okay, so next strategy. Let's make some more room here. Oh, put in the comments if you like these transitions or if it's better when I just peel back the piece of paper. I don't know. We'll try some things. Okay, so the last strategy that we'll cover, which is going to be in the same vein, terrible tax strategy number 3 is non-qualified annuities, right? And here's how those work. We're just going to throw. So again, I've talked about annuities in the past, all these other different things. We're just going to talk about the non-qualified part of it. This would be, hey, you've got a bunch of money. Maybe you've sold a home or you inherited your parents' house and then sold it and you got 200 grand or 100 grand. What do you do with it, right? And what they'll talk about is that, hey, you can invest that in a brokerage account. So we'll say blue is a brokerage account, and we'll say that red is an annuity. And so you can do it. You can put that in a brokerage account, and it can go up and down with the market and whatever else, and grow and get those 8 to 12% gross returns. Awesome. But the problem is, right, you're going to be paying taxes on interest that's in there, on dividends that pay out, often 4 times a year, sometimes twice, sometimes once a year. And then when you sell anything in there to reposition from one account to the next, you will pay capital gains on that income as well. And that's all at usually 15% capital gains rate, right? So you have to do all those things, or you could put it all in an annuity, which will still hey, just invest in the exact same thing or whatever. It should still earn that whole thing, but you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. It's going to defer all of that, right? And so instead of paying those taxes, right, if you're not paying taxes all the way along the way, if you just do the math between gross returns versus net returns before and after taxes, you will have way more money in a non-qualified annuity than if you just put it in a brokerage account, because you don't have the tax drag on your balance the entire time, right? And so, hey, instead of having, and then you don't have to worry about it. You can move money around between two funds as much as you want without paying any capital gains. All the dividends that pay those just reinvest without paying any taxes on them, so it helps the growth more. And the interest is tax deferred. You don't have to worry about that. And then you just pay taxes when you pull it back out, right? Okay. So again, here's the things that they don't often cover when they talk about these things. So again, you've got on this account, this is your, let's make sure to say on that, this is your cost basis. This is an important tax term that everyone should know. That means the amount you put into the account, right? And so this amount of money, this would always be after-tax money if we're talking non-qualified, non-retirement accounts. Non-qualified just means non-retirement. And your cost basis always comes back to you tax-free, right? Because you don't have to, you already paid taxes on that. And so we're just talking about the growth. So if you let, a brokerage account grow to this amount and you pull it all out at once, you're going to get, you put in this amount, you're going to get this amount. This section here, again, is tax-free. You don't pay any taxes on that. This part here, this would all be, if it assumed you hadn't made any changes along the way to your investments, you would still pay interest and dividends every year, but this would all be capital gains, right? And you pay taxes on that. 15% for most people. Some people it's 0 if your income's low enough. Some people it's 20 or 23.8 based on other things. But you have all that, right? And so again, right, you could do the annuity, and again, you would get all this tax-free if you pulled all that out at once, and you would have more money overall, right? But here's what they don't tell you. So here's a couple of problems. One, they illustrate it like this, and they use the same returns, and they just illustrate tax-free versus, or tax deferred versus taxable each year. And that's how they come up with this delta here, this difference. What they don't say, and that's where problem number one is, right, is that they have much higher fees on annuities than they do on regular brokerage accounts, which means lower returns, right? And so generally, right, just so let's see, number one, high fees, right? Generally, those are, you have a base 1.3%, what's called M&E charge, mortality and expense charge. That's before any expense ratios, before any other fees, before any bells and whistles. That's going to be just base. Doesn't give you any, there's no benefit to this, right? You're not getting financial planning for this. You're not getting anything really. It's just the fee for being in an annuity. And then you might have some admin fees, maybe that's another 0.2. And then you might have the expense ratios of the funds, which typically are a lot higher. So that might be like another 0.7. And so you could be looking at anywhere from 2.2 to, I don't know, as high as 4%. It's out of the screen there, 4% per year on these accounts, right? And so if these, and like that would be like nobody's paying 2.2 on our everything we do, or any other good planner for that matter. And so you are paying more fees. And so to say that you're automatically going to have this delta, I don't think so. When you add all those fees in there, even if it's adjusted the same way, you are actually more likely to end up here and actually less money overall. If you really just look at the after fee returns, all this. Again, I have no problem paying fees. I pay a lot of fees. I charge fees. there's no problem with fees in general, but the extra fees that we pay without any value attached to them, that's where I have problems. Again, it's all couched as just, hey, this is a good tax strategy. But if you look at everything else, the tax benefits do not outweigh these bad fees. And again, you're going to have less money overall, even if you deferred the taxes all the way along the way. So even if you paid all these taxes on a brokerage account, if you still end up with more money, that's still better, right? Going back to our, not to minimize taxes, the goal is to maximize money after taxes, right? From the last point, that still applies here. The second problem, right, is, so problem number 2 is you've got surrender charges and the 59.5 thing. So surrender and 59.5. So 1, this is now locked up until 59.5. It basically turns it into a retirement account for deferring all those taxes, right? And so that might suck. Brokerage account, it's kind of like the opposite of whole life, right? Or permanent life insurance. The brokerage account, you can get money out anytime in here, no problems. With the non-qualified, you're stuck out till 59.5. You are also usually stuck for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, where if you try to get it out anywhere in here, there's going to be a huge, oftentimes starting at 7%, surrender charge, where they literally will charge you 7% if you try to take your money back out. So you put 100 grand in there, a year later, you're trying to take it out, they will take 7 grand out before they give it back to you, right? And that's usually 7, 7, 7, 7, 6, 5, and then 0, right? So it's like this declining surrender charge on it. And the reason they do that is because they paid this to the person who sold you the annuity up front. And so if you take your money back before they can recoup all that and the 1.5% mortality and expense charge, they will take that money back from you. So not a lot of flexibility there. Okay, so that's problem number 2. Problem number 3 is, what do we got here? It converts your capital gains to ordinary income. And if you watch any of my other videos or know much about this, right? Ordinary income is your classic, right? Let's see here. Your classic 10, 12, 22, 24, etc. % tax brackets, right? So you got those. And, so instead of paying capital gains, which is 0 up to about the same point that you pay 12, and then 15, you're converting zeros into 10 or 12%, and you're converting 15s into 24, 22, or maybe even higher, right? So again, still get the cost basis tax-free, but all this extra money from here to here, or more likely from here to here, that is all now taxed, especially if you take it all at once, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you did, right, that would all be taxed at your highest ordinary income tax bracket, which is always higher than your capital gains bracket. So yes, you can defer it all the way out here, but no, A, you pay higher fees, and B, you convert that to a way worse tax bracket. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Pay some taxes along the way. There are ways to invest this where you can minimize that. We talk about that a bunch in this book here too, with non-qualified strategies and how you can maximize those and minimize taxes. But you don't need to do a non-qualified annuity to avoid these. It's really bad. And then the last one, briefly here, is that there is number 4, no step up. So when you pass away, let's say instead of taking this out here, you you just died. And again, your cost basis is this. And so if you were to take it out here, you would pay capital gains on all that. If you were to die here, you get what's called a step up in basis, where, hey, your basis was here, but we're going to step it up and we're going to pretend like you bought it for X, which means that if your heirs who inherited it turn right back around and sell it, hey, you bought it for X, it's worth Y, it's the same thing, you pay no taxes on it, right? Not so with non-qualified annuities. Hey, you bought it for X, you passed away when it was Y, cost basis stays the same. And you pay, again, ordinary income tax on that whole chunk all at once. Congratulations. Now maybe you can do a beneficiary and pass it on or whatever else, but you don't get any step up. Someone's still going to eventually pay those taxes pulling that money out. So again, terrible. Let's see here. For that, high fees equals lower returns. You got surrender charges and 520 or 559.5 limits. You got the converts your capital gains into ordinary income, and you don't get the step up in basis, which is huge for legacy taxes. So for all those reasons, generally it doesn't make sense to do a non-qualified annuity for your extra non-retirement money. Don't do it. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Those are 3 terrible tax strategies that you would want to avoid this year. There's 2 more in this book here. If you want to pre-order it, we can toss that up in there. There'll be a link in the description. You can pre-order this, but you also get some goodies if we pre-order these books. And I think we can throw those up there too. So if you pre-order 1, you're going to get the book. You will get the other one, right? And so you'll get both of those. So you only pay for 1, but you get both. And you'll get a bonus tax workshop that we're working on that will come out. You get my other book, right? This one here, right there, that one there. You'll get that one for free as well, both audio and ebook, and all of that for free if you pre-order it. So you will end up ordering it, and then we'll end up refunding that difference there to you, and then you'll get all the other stuff for free. We also have an option where if you want to help other people, you can pre-order 10 of them. And then you get everything you got in the first one. You will still pay the retail price, $200 or whatever. So you get everything else. Plus, we'll do your taxes for either 2025 if you haven't, or in 2026 if you already did 2025 taxes. So that's like a $350 plus benefit right there, all for $200. And then a personalized one-on-one tax planning session where we can help you apply all the stuff from the book to your unique situation. So all of that, $1,200 plus benefit for only about $1.99. So you can do that as well. Links are in the description, and that helps other people find it. And we just want to get the good word out there to people and go from there. So, okay, we got time for probably 1 question here. So we will, I think, use one of our email questions. Again, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. And if we don't get time to do them today, we can answer them next week. But yeah, what was that first question? So yeah, Jennifer had emailed in. And she said, hey, you talk a lot about stocks. I do. I call them equities. But what about in retirement? I don't want to lose money. So it's a very common thing here that people worry about. And, hey, we heard when you're young, were you supposed to, invest in stocks. And then as you get older, you dumb it down, right? And you invest more in conservative things, more in bonds and CDs and those types of things. And what about retirement, right? I don't want to lose money. Okay, so 2 things. 1, I always call them equities, not stocks, because when I think of stocks, I think of the nebulous stock market, which doesn't mean anything to anybody. And when I think of equities, I think of, hey, the equity you have in your house, right? And as that grows, you have more equity or more ownership in that house. And eventually you have 100% equity, 100% ownership in that house. So when we invest in the stock market, it's not this weird thing. It's not gambling, right? It's not this weird thing that we don't have control over. You are buying ownership shares in the best businesses in the world, right? And as business owners, that means when your businesses do well, you make money. And when they go through rough times, you go through rough times, right? That's part of being a business owner. But let me phrase it this way. And actually, I cover this in my first book, 3D Retirement Income, which you can also get for free if you want, or you can just buy it if you don't want to give us your email. That's fine. And I talk about this in here, but I think it's a helpful framing for a lot of people. So let's say that you bought a house some time ago, right? So you got a little house, got like a roof, got a couple windows. Maybe it's a 2-story house. You got that, got a little door. So you got your house, and you bought it for let's say $200,000, whenever this was, some time ago. And you decide, hey, it's time to, we've been here long enough. It's time to sell. It's time to move. And we're trying to move on, right? And so we sell that, or, we look on Zillow. It says we're this. We talk to a realtor. They post it. And they decide, hey, we think we can get $400,000 for it. And so you list it for $400,000, right? So you paid $200,000. That's your cost basis, right? Which we just talked about in the other thing. So you paid $200,000 for it. And now we think it's worth $400,000, right? Question for you. Does the value of your house just go straight up like that? No, right? The value of your house is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it, right? And that changes based on market conditions, based on who wants houses, supply and demand, all these things. So the value of your house actually did something like this over that time. You just didn't see it. because maybe you check Zillow once a year or once every few years or never, right? And so you mostly just maybe saw it here, maybe you saw it here, maybe you saw it here, and it was actually at a really low point. You just didn't know because the last time you checked, it was still above there. And you're like, hey, sweet, my house is improving. And then you checked it here, and you're like, whoa, that's awesome, and here, and then at the end. So you didn't see the ups and downs because there isn't a TV above your door where every day it tells you how much your home is worth. Right? So you list it, you put it on the market on a Thursday. Over the weekend, a bunch of people come in and look at the house, right? And you said, hey, we're gonna have it for the weekend. We'll look at offers over the weekend and we'll get back to you on Monday. So a bunch of offers come flooding in. And for all over the place, some higher, some lower, but the best offer you get is for $420,000. And so, like, literally overnight, you went from thinking you had 400,000 to 420,000. Right? Question for you: have you made, right? If we paid 200 for it, have we made this difference here? Have we made $220,000? No, not yet, because we haven't sold it yet. Right? This is what would be called unrealized gain. Right? If we look at from zero, this is zero, right? We paid 200 for it, and now we've got, again, same thing. All this would be tax-free, and since it's your house, the rest would be tax-free too. Here's your cost basis. Here's your capital gain, right? This would be unrealized. You haven't actually sold it. You haven't actually made any money yet. But you're like, well, hey, we definitely want to do this. We just made an extra 20 grand overnight. This is awesome, but we should sleep on it like smart people do. Maybe pray about it, talk to our spouse, etc. And overnight, storm rolls in, and lightning strikes your house. Or strikes the tree next to your house, branch comes down, caves in the roof, etc. And you're like, that's no good. Big storm, bunch of trees down. Everyone hears about it. They're like, hey, isn't that the house we just put an offer in? They come back. They see the damage to your house. They're like, whoa, we don't want that house anymore. And they pull all their offers. So before you can accept it. So you're like, well, we should have said yes there, but we didn't. That's all right. We have homeowners insurance. They'll fix all this. And so you keep it on the market. More people come and see it. But now the offers aren't as good. And now the best offer you get is for $350,000. Okay, question again. Have we lost money here? Have we lost money? And in some ways, it kind of feels like it, right? Because you went from 420 to 350, and so that feels like a $70,000 loss. But in other ways, right? I guess we're still up from 200. So I guess that's still technically a gain of 150. But it doesn't feel like that, right? We mostly just feel lost because literally last night we had an extra 70 grand. But here's the thing, right? We only lose this money if we say yes and we sell it for that price. If we don't sell it, we don't lose the money. And because we're not stupid and we don't need the money that badly, we decide, hey, we're not going to sell. We're going to wait. Let's take it off the market. Insurance will fix all this. They do. They come in, they fix the roof. Siding was destroyed. They can't color match it. You got to do all new siding. House looks amazing. Put it back on the market, and you list it again, and eventually you get an offer for $450,000 6 months later. And so you went from 200 to 400 to 420 to 350 to 450. So there we go. That looks great. Have we gained any money here? Only if we say yes and sell it for 450, right? So, but here's the deal. Have we lost money here? Not really. Only if we say yes. Instead, what we say is, hey, we haven't lost money. Instead, we've had a temporary decline in value. And in the same way, we haven't really gained money until we sell. But if we wait for that temporary decline to come back, that's when we can actually make money instead of losing it. And the only way to turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell when the value is down. Let me say that again. The only way to turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell when the value is down. We need to wait until the value is back up, and then we can sell it at a gain. And so in the same way with your businesses, what was her name? Sorry, Jennifer, with the businesses that you own, right? They're not stocks, these are businesses. The values, they go up and down because they're based on what people are willing to pay. And sometimes people think they're willing to pay a lot less because of uncertainty. But we know that if they're good businesses, the value will eventually come back. We don't know when, we just know that the values will come back. And we only lose money if we say yes and sell them for less than they were worth before. You're still making money, especially compared to, hey, if you put it in, you could have put that money in bonds. And yes, it would have been way more stable, but you would have way less even at the bottom, right? But more importantly, if you just wait, we can sell it later when the value has recovered and we capture all that gain, right? So yes, we still need equities in retirement because that's the only way to make real money. Bond stuff don't make enough money to sustain, and we never lose money. We only have a temporary decline in value, and we only lose if we capitulate and sell. So that'd be the main thing we want to avoid doing. Now, this is all part of strategy. It's actually outlined very well in this book, 3D Retirement Income. It's kind of the whole basis of the book is equity versus fixed income investing. You can get that for free in the link. You can just find it on Amazon and buy it if you want to do it that way. Or you can pre-order this one, right? And you get all of these for free. So that's pretty cool. We're just trying to help people, right? And some of you might eventually hire us to be your full planner, which is fine with me. But even if you don't, we hope that this helps. And we don't want people to do this ever. We want them to do this. And so we don't lose money, Jennifer. We have a temporary decline in value. And the only way we turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell when it's down, which means we need the way not to. Because part of it could be, hey, if you had to move, back to the house situation, right? Or their house. If you had to move, we don't have a choice. We have to accept whatever. Then you would have to accept this and we would take that loss, right? So you would need options. You would need to say, hey, we need to buy another house, but we've got enough money where we can pay a double mortgage for a while until we can sell it later. And yes, we may be paying extra and paying 2 interest loans and all that stuff, and it might hurt us a little bit, but we know it's not going to hurt us as much as taking this loss because eventually we'll make so much more money that will more than make up for the double home payment. Right? So in the same way, yes, we want equities in retirement, but we need a way to make sure that we never have to or forced to sell when it's down. And that's what the strategy is all about. So you can get both of these for free, audiobook and hardcover. Links in the description. So hopefully that helps. Going a little long today, started a little late, but we'll be back here next week, right at 4 o'clock Central. Right. So join us for that. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Take care. Cheers.